Planning Commission to order. This is the public hearing, and we are the Putnam County Planning Commission. Can you hear me? Did I just go mute?
I can hear you.
Okay. We're the Putnam County Planning Commission. We're the designated local planning agency for the county as described under Title 11, Chapter 163 of the Florida statutes. And we function under the authority of Articles 11 and 12 of the Putnam County Land Development Code. The primary responsibility of the commission is to serve as an advisory body to hear and make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners on matters related to provisions of and proposed amendments to the Putnam County Comprehensive Plan and the Putnam County Land Development Code. The members of this committee will review each application and make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners at the last meeting in July on the fourth Tuesday. Procedurally, we will call each case by name and number. A member of staff will then briefly explain to us the nature of the request. We will take comments from the applicant or their representative, followed by any public comments concerning the request. Please direct all comments or statements to the commission and not to other people in the audience. Before speaking, we will ask each person to be recognized, come forward to the lectern, and identify his or herself by name and address. After all of persons wishing to speak have been heard, we will entertain a motion from the commission. This motion will be voted on by the commission members and become our recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. The Board of County Commissioners will make the final determination regarding the application. As a matter of note, cases 1 and 2, I believe it was 1 and 2, actually 2 and 3, LM 19001 and PUD 19001 have been deferred at the applicant's request. Before we start, we'd like to do a roll call to check on site visits for each of the 2 sites and just get your attendance. So, Aaron, did you visit Buffalo Bluff?
I did, but that one's withdrawn, right?
Right, but we're still counting it.
Yes.
And Moody Road?
Yes.
And you are obviously here.
Yeah.
Joy Froelich. Got to unmute you, Joey. Okay, Joey, try again.
All right, I'm here.
Yeah, you're here. Did
Yes.
you visit? Did you
Yes.
visit both sites?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. Joe Roberts.
Yes, both.
Okay, thank you. And you're here.
Yes.
Tom DeSantis.
Yes, both.
Thank you. Joel Dantzler.
Yes, both.
Thank you. Jerry Hafner is not here. Adam Hemphill is not here.
Gary Hafner's been trying to get in. I talked to him earlier, and he was trying to get in unless he just gave up. He
He
said
should be calling in.
he tried several times. He was waiting just like I was for a while before the screen ever
Okay.
I was ever allowed to join. So I just thought I'd let you know.
Okay. Mike, can you get someone to make that phone call? Is Jim here?
Jim was going to call in, so he should be able to. I'm not sure if I don't see him.
He's not on the list.
Gary said let him in.
Jerry said,
Gary just texted me and said let him in.
okay. Let's see if this will do it. Is he phone number?
Hey, Jim Triano's on the call, Madam Chair. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Jim, could you try to reach out to Jerry Hafner and see if you can help him get it?
I'll work with Jacob, Madam Chair. We'll try to get that to happen.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. What we're going to do this afternoon is we're going to do case number 1, or case A, and then we're going to move into the comprehensive plan. And hopefully we will be out of here sometime around 6 o'clock. I want to spend an hour and a half if we can. We may be able to brush it up a little bit. Okay. Mike, I'll turn it over to you for presentation of case R 20-004.
All right, Madam Chair and Planning Commission, case R 20-004 is an application for an amendment to the zoning map. The applicant is Safe Pet Rescue Incorporated. They are requesting an amendment of the zoning map on 2 parcels totaling 0.84 acres from retail commercial C2 to general commercial C3. The 2 parcels are located at 819 and 821 South Moody Road in Palatka. As a little background, both parcels are designated commercial on the future land use map. There is an existing commercial structure and warehouse on the northern parcel, and the southern parcel is primarily the paved parking area for the structures. This request is in response to a Coates case regarding the running of a kennel in a C2 zoning district. The present zoning will not allow a kennel. The requested C3 zoning district will allow kennel, subject to obtaining a special use permit before that use can happen. The maps are included in your packet. These 2 parcels border the city of Palatka to the north. The parcels directly to the north of both parcels are in the city of Palatka. The primary zoning around the existing, the subject parcels in the county is C2 to the south and east. Across Moody Road, you have some vacant agriculturally zoned property with some C1 developed commercial. To the north in the city of Palatka, the parcels bordering this subject parcels are C2 commercial and multifamily R3. The parcels immediately north of the subject parcels are vacant, the ones in the city of Palatka. As I indicated, the comprehensive plan designation is commercial. C3 uses and the C3 zoning district are allowed in the commercial zoning district. The subject parcels have direct access to Moody Road and have access to State Road 19 via the shared parking area. Moody Road is designated a major collector, and State Road 19 is designated a minor arterial in the comp plan. The parcel has been utilized for commercial purposes for a number of years and are presently being used by Safe Pet Rescue to house rescued animals waiting for adoption. In analyzing the request, the C3 zoning district does allow for a mix of light and medium intensity commercial uses. And as I mentioned earlier, specifically a kennel would be allowed in the C3 zoning district, subject to obtaining approval for a special use permit for such a use. As I indicated, the parcels have access to both Moody Road and State Road 19. The adopted level of service for both of those facilities is D, and both of those facilities presently operate an acceptable level of service. The fact that the parcel is already developed with a commercial structure without an expansion or a significant change of use. It is unlikely from staff's perspective that you would see a significant increase in transportation impacts. It would basically be consistent with the existing use and the number of trips that are generated from that facility today. Again, the surrounding uses and zoning is primarily commercial with multifamily R3 and commercial C2 in the city of Palatka just to the north. In conclusion, staff finds that the proposed request to rezone the 2 parcels to C3 is consistent with the commercial future land use designation of the comprehensive plan and with other goals and objectives of the plan. Is consistent with the locational requirements for the C3 zoning district found in the Land Development Code and is compatible with the surrounding uses. Staff recommends approval of the request to amend the zoning map from commercial retail C2 to commercial general C3 for the subject parcels. You have any questions of staff at this point?
Any questions from the board? Hearing none, we have the applicant present, I believe. Can we get Safe Pet Rescue? You're unmuted. Please state your name and address, and if you'd like to say anything, we'll be glad to listen.
My name is Tina Harsey. I live at 202 Old Woods Road in Interlaken, Florida, and I'm the manager there.
Is there anything you would like to add into addition to what Mr. Brown said?
No, we just asked that we're allowed to go ahead and make the request to change it.
Okay, thank you. I know we have one person waiting in to speak. Mr. Rowe, if you could, or Rowe or Rao, however you pronounce it. Could you?
Rowe, yes.
Rowe, thank you. Could you please state your name and address and proceed?
My name is John Rowe, and the address here at the office is 906 South State Road 19. My office is immediately across from the Safe Pet Rescue office building. And we also own me and my partners also own the properties on either side of us, 904 State Road 19, which otherwise known as the Sears store, and 815 South Moody Road that has 3 individual small businesses in it. I'd like to start out by saying that there aren't many people who love animals much more than I do. My daughter's probably one of them. We've always had dogs. I don't remember a time that we haven't had dogs and taken really good, we love our dogs. I've adopted 2 pets from Safe Pet Rescue. I appreciate what they do. I love what they do. We even have clients who bring dogs once in a while into our office, and it's okay. But having dogs barking at all hours of the workday in a professional setting is not pleasant. My office has been in the front of our office building since we built the building in 1985. For most of the last 35 years, it's been a pretty quiet neighborhood generally. For the last couple of years with the dog kennel across the parking lot, it hasn't been quite that. To be fair, the noise isn't consistent. It isn't all day, every day. I guess it depends on the number and the breed of animals that they have over there. Some days tend to be very loud and some days are not. I believe Safe Pet still owns a facility built specifically for what they do. And apparently they let it fall into some disrepair. And if you look at the facility right now here at Moody Road, if I look out my window, you'll see a privacy fence about over 100 feet long. And there's about anywhere from 1 to 2 feet of weeds grown up outside of the privacy fence in the parking lot. And there's cracks in front of the actual building where weeds are grown up approximately 1 foot across the front of the building. The side of the Moody Road is generally worse. There's always several potholes in the parking lot. Typically those stay for months and they're not fixed. And then within a few months they're back. One time even a police car lost its undercarriage running across the parking lot through one of the potholes. the point of all of this is to say that a nonprofit organization supported by sympathetic donors doesn't need a pleasant, attractive location conducive to attracting customers like a commercial business like ours and others here do. It's not desirable for a general business area like ours. Wouldn't they be better off if they rented or sold this facility and fixed up the facility that is much more conducive to raising animals, keeping animals? And all of this obviously affects our property values. Right now, I have 2 properties out of our 5 here that are for rent. Finally, just to say, I don't understand the staff recommendation. All of the contiguous properties are C2 or residential. The fact that the C3 even requires a special exception to have a kennel in it lends greater credence to the fact that this shouldn't be approved. So for several reasons, I request this zoning be denied.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Are there any questions of Mr. Rowe? And I forgot to ask if there were any questions of Safe Pet Rescue.
I do have a question for Safe Pet Rescue.
Thank you, Erin. Go ahead.
Approximately how long have you been there? I know it was a thrift store for years. How long has it been operating as a kennel? And how long has the code case been going on?
It's been a kennel for about a year. Before that, it may have been a little bit more. I'm not sure exactly on when. The case, I don't know when it started the first time. But it's been a little while since it's been started, the case.
Okay. And then one more question is approximately how many animals are there on any given time and what type? I mean, dog and cats, I assume.
There's both dogs and cats. There's 10 cats in an open category. And then in the dog part, maybe 10 to 12 at one time.
Okay. And this other facility that Mr. Rowe referenced, is that a viable possibility that you already own?
Which one is he referring to?
The one in Hollister where you were before you moved here.
Yeah, that one is still up and running.
So you're operating the 2 facilities.
Yes.
So this is like a just a Palaca location?
Yes,
like
ma'am.
Secondary? Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions of the applicant or of Mr. Rowe?
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
Are you planning on, and this is for the manager of Safe Pet, are you planning on expanding with this zoning, or what's the purpose for your rezoning? You know, are you trying to make it larger?
No, we want a place in Palaca for people to come to adopt, and they're not wanting to drive to the Hollister location. So we bring the more adoptable dogs to Palaca.
So there's no expansion planned on?
No, whatever's there is what we're leaving. Yep.
Would you agree with what Mr. Rowe said about you not keeping the place up as far as mowing and all that type thing?
Yes, sir. We're working on that. We've been trying to get a couple business owners, or not business owners, grass companies to give us a quote so that we can get it cut and keep it maintained.
How long have you had the site in Palaca?
Well, before it was a retail store. We've had it for years. I've been working with it for 7 years, and the whole time I've been there, it's been a.
I mean, it's been operational for 7 years with cats and dogs in it.
Not with cats and dogs. We've had it a thrift store with cats in it, but then we closed it down and made it into an adoption center.
How long ago did that change?
About a year.
It's been over 2 years, because I brought this up about 3 years ago, actually.
Excuse me.
It got dropped, and then it got
Mr. Rowe,
I'm sorry.
we need you to address us and not her.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So, ma'am, you were saying that it's been a little over a year?
Yeah, it may have been a little longer, yes.
Okay. So you converted the thrift store into an adoption center.
Yes.
Are the dogs kept there 24/7?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Mr. Rowe, did you want to make a clarification? I'll let you do that.
Yeah, it's been over 2 years, maybe 3 that it's been a kennel. I brought this up a couple of times and it's just been dropped over the years, and I'm not worried too much about it. But.
Thank you. Mr. Brown,
Yes.
can you give us the history of the codes case?
I don't have the specifics, but I believe it's been approximately 2 years that I'm aware of that the codes case has been dragging along. I think Mr. Rowe's correct. It was sort of dragging. That was due to lack of staff in the codes division, but it has been probably a good 2 years that it's been in the process.
Okay, thank you. And so this is in response to the code case to get it within compliance.
Yes, there was the special magistrate found that it was met the definition of a kennel as it's laid forth in the land development code, and gave Safe Pet Rescue, I don't know how many, amount of time to try to correct the violation, and this is their attempt to rezone to C3, and then they still need to seek a special use permit to be able to allowed to operate a kennel even in the C3 location. And then, so all those in the code, there are some specific requirements for a kennel. One of those, and I know because I've had discussions with with members at Safe Pet, what is a requirement that the facility needs to be soundproofed. So that's, I'm just pointing that out, that would be a condition of the special use permit because it is required by the land development code for such a use.
So Mike, Joe Roberts, so this zoning change wouldn't allow for the dogs or cats, whatever, to be placed outside. This is all inside the building.
Yes, I mean that's what the code would require that, and the zoning doesn't allow. This is just the first step. The zoning would not outright, in and of itself, allow for the kennel use. They still have to are required to get the special use permit.
Yes.
Which there would be conditions placed on that.
Okay. I'd like to ask the owner, how close are you to being prepared to provide soundproofing in that building?
We're working on it. I'm not the owner, I'm just the manager. I would have to get with the owner and find out how she plans on doing it, but we're going to do whatever it takes to make it right. The noise, everything.
Okay.
But Susan,
yes,
just quickly, that's another step, right? Yeah.
Yes, it would be.
Yes.
In order to meet the requirements of a special use permit, they would have to meet all, soundproofing is one of the elements that would have to be done. I would assume it would allow for outdoor runs for dogs, but not for having dogs kept outside for any length of time. Bringing it back to the board, somebody want to put it on the table?
Yeah, I love pets as much as anybody, and I think their cause is a great cause, but in my opinion, the location is not. I just put myself in. If I was in that location, and I don't support it.
Okay.
I tend to agree with Joel, and just the fact that they have a codes case, and now need for that to be fixed in order to continue. I mean, it does make me feel for them, but at the same time, I don't think it's an ideal spot for that C3 zoning. And then still have to get a special use permit. I feel like it's a little much for professional area that's around it.
Mhm. Anyone else? Tom? You're against it? Jerry, how do you feel? Oops, gotta unmute you. Got anyone muted? Nope, there he is. Unmute.
Am I on now?
Yes, you're on now, Jerry.
Okay. Well, I've hit that button up there and it keeps flashing and going off. Now it says mute again. Oh, that's if I want to mute. Okay. No, I thought that Joel had actually made a motion, and I would second that motion if he had. I don't think it's the right place for that type of facility to be located.
Joel, are you making that motion?
I did make the motion. I'm sorry I didn't use the formal, but I do make a motion.
That it's not in line with the goals and objectives of the comp plan. All righty, and Mr. Hacker, you're seconding that?
That's correct.
Any other discussion? Joey?
I agree with the rest of them. No.
Okay. Any other discussion from anybody else? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Tom?
Yes.
Aaron?
I support the motion. Yes.
Joel?
It's a no.
All right, you don't want it. Let's get the motion clarified. To deny, right? The motion is to deny.
The motion is to deny the request. That is correct.
And so
I support that.
So you vote no. So you vote yes, I'm sorry. You say yes. Joey?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Joe?
No.
Okay, and the chair votes no. All righty. Moving on, we will make a recommendation to the county commission that this request be denied. They will hear that at their second July meeting, which we believe is July 28th. We don't have that date firm right now in front of us. Thank you very much for being here, Mr. Rowe and Safe Pet Rescue. We appreciate your bringing this to us. We appreciate your participating in the civil discourse.
Thank you.
So I thank you. All righty, folks. I'd like to move into discussion of a comprehensive plan. Before we do, so we don't get lost in the shuffle, can we go ahead and approve the minutes of the May 13th meeting before we go into talking about the comp plan?
I'll move we approve the minutes of the May 13th meeting.
Okay,
As
Aaron.
written.
Aaron makes a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I heard everybody there.
Mhm.
Joel, will let you second that. And I'll do a roll call vote again. Tom?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yeah. Yes.
Joel?
Yes. Yes.
Joey?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Okay, appreciate that. Now, want to welcome Brian Teeple to being with us and want to talk about the comprehensive plan. One of the things that we know we're going to have to do in relation to the comp plan is the contract with Kimley Horn is going to have to be amended to extend the time frame. The time frame is cited as being part of the RFP, the request for proposal. There are a number of items in the RFP that are cited in the contract as being contractual in the relationship. One of those is that the contractor is going to conduct a focus group or a public hearing in each of the five commission districts. We've had one here in Palaca that was very poorly attended. We had one in Melrose. To date, that's it. And I know, Mike, we've got the ag community that wants to have a special focus group. Do we have a date on that yet?
No, I am coordinating that as we speak, but it's not set.
Okay,
I have also am in the process of working with Commissioner Pickens to hold a workshop down in the south end of the county.
okay,
And we are going to have another meeting here in Palatka. And then if we can get the Prospect Community Center open, we will follow through with the meeting we had originally had scheduled there. Spoke with or worked with Mr. Danzler earlier in the week, and he informed me that that facility is yet to open up. So that's why that's on a delay right now.
okay. We don't have anything in Interlochen. Strictly
We have
West
not.
Putnam.
Not yet.
We've had Northwest
Outside,
Putnam.
yeah, now outside of the Melrose, yeah.
So we really need to get something going in the Interlochen area.
Okay, we can get that.
Okay, that gives us 5, but does that put one in every district? Does that put one in District 3?
District 3.
Mr. Turner's district.
Yeah.
District
Yeah,
3 is
well-
where I'm at, which
Pardon?
District 3 is Bostwick, I'm pretty sure.
It's East Palatka.
Okay.
East Palatka.
District 2, I think, is Bostwick.
Stand to be corrected, but I thought I was in District 3. I could have sworn.
We're all in every district, literally, but we can check on that. But we
Well-
do need to try to accommodate everybody. I
Staff
don't think,
confirm that.
thank you. Brian, I hope that you will work with Mike and get these scheduled.
We have already started working on that, Madam Chair, just to let you
Okay.
know. Brian and
All
I
right.
have already had started discussions.
Okay, we really need to get those done because part of what we do in revising the comp plan comes out of the comments that are received from these focus groups. Now, I'm going to give you the outside date, and we're going to have to fill in from there. But the County Commission wants a draft of this revised comp plan in their hands for their first meeting in October. I heard that. When I told Mike yesterday, is this optimistic? Yep. Is it doable? Yep. We can make it happen because once we get through the land development or the land use element, we've only got one other really big one, and that's housing. So getting through that's not going to be that difficult after those two. So I'm hoping we can get through land development today or land use. Now, I would like to propose, and you might want to write this down, that all focus groups with citizens from each, I keep wanting to say congressional, commission district be completed by the 15th of July. I would like that we have all numerical data, finalized numerical data with graphic analysis, either pie charts, bar graphs, whatever, in our hands by July 1st. Now, this is something we've been asking for months. We're adding the graphic analysis, but I think it's important. Then we'd like the full narrative response, your spreadsheet, Brian, by the end of July, so that we can have that as input when we do our first review. Would like to have this group have completed our markup, our crossouts and our additions by the 12th of August. Then have the red line draft 2 the Planning Commission to review in whole on our meeting on 9 September. Then we would do a final review and final markup of that to give it to our consultant, who would then have until October 1st to complete the draft or the final version of what we're going to transmit to the County Commission. And then give it to the County Commission on their meeting on the 13th of October. Have it in their hands a little bit before that. Both a red line copy and a copy that has been approved of all the changes. So a clean copy with all the changes and the red line strikeout, strikeout edition. That way we can get to October 1st. Now, to do that, I would also like to suggest that we pick a fourth Wednesday, be it May or June, and hold a workshop in the evening, like the one we had to cancel the 29th of April. That's a lot, but are you with me?
I think we have to be, right?
You can argue with me. This is just my recommendation.
Well, I'm just saying there's not a lot of time between now and then. So
No, and we have said all along we would have this completed. Originally, we were saying we'd have it to them in September, but I think it's impossible at this juncture, given the fact that we had a little epidemic that interrupted our work. What is your availability for a fourth Wednesday?
I myself will make it happen if y'all just tell me what you would need.
Okay, we would do it in person here in the commission chambers. It, of course, will have to be an advertised meeting. We may have somebody come and want to speak to us, but 3 hours, food, snacks, whatever it takes to get you here to do some work.
Which date are you looking at, Susan?
What is the fourth Wednesday of June?
24th?
24th?
Talking about June 24th,
June 24th.
2 weeks from today.
2 weeks from today.
Okay.
How's everybody look on that?
I'll make it happen.
Yeah,
Like
I can.
6 to 9 or something like that?
Mhm.
Have an early supper and come?
I'm good
we'll be
with the date.
meeting
That'll
in
work.
person at this one.
Be an in-person meeting, yes.
Okay.
And we will go back to being in person because by the time we have our next meeting, I think we have to. I think government entities have to go back to in-person meetings back. Okay.
Actually, Susan, I'd like to say that I really am all for having this workshop. I don't know how everybody else is, but I'm sitting here at my dining room table right now, and I've got 4 different stacks of paper, and I'm not sure which one to look at.
Well, I will hold something up. You don't have a copy of the contract. I will hold something up and say, this is what we're looking at in just a minute. Okay.
Cool.
Okay. Brian, can you be on board with this?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, we'll work with General Services and the County Commission and General Services to get the contract amended, get this in the contract. Is there anything else we need to have in the contract? We'll extend the time frame probably through the 30th of November, the final time point. So you'll have time to get a submittal going to the state.
Madam Chair, the only outlier that's out there, or not outlier, but the unknown at this point, there is, and Brian may have a better handle on whether there's any possibility, but there is, the legislature passed, and it's sitting on, my understanding, sitting on the governor's desk to require the inclusion of a property rights element into all comp plans. And if we are going to, if that does become into being, as a requirement. We should try to address it while we're going
Yeah.
through the amendment process.
Okay.
So that,
Do we have descriptions of what they're looking for with that?
it's, what I've seen is very, very fuzzy. Let me
Very
put it-
state-like. Okay. Brian, what's your thought on that?
I'm looking on the governor's website right now to see if that bill has actually hit his desk. I don't believe it has yet.
Okay.
But I'll tell you in just a second.
Okay.
It's House Bill, Senate Bill 410.
We're in the second year of the legislative session, so it would die and have to be reintroduced, wouldn't it? If it didn't make it through?
It made it through. It just hasn't been presented to the governor, and there's no statutory time frame in which something has to be presented to the governor.
Okay.
So the last batch of bills went to him on the 18th of June. In this bill,
We haven't even had that yet.
sorry, no, I'm reading the wrong column. That's when he has to do some. Last group was presented to him on June 3rd.
Okay, and he has 15 days to sign or veto.
Essentially, that's right, 15 days. And I don't see it there. It is bundled with a bunch of other priorities that are priorities of not only the legislature, but the governor. So we assume that when it is presented, it will in fact be signed.
Okay,
So
can you give me that House bill number again?
I believe, and I'm looking for it, it's Senate Bill 410. And I wasn't thinking about this tonight. Oh, come on.
That's okay. We can look that up and have the information with us for our workshop, which we can do. Brian, are you able to be with us on the 24th of June?
Yes, ma'am.
Okie dokie. All right, let's move into a discussion of population. And we'll start with this chart. Everybody have that in front of them. It was sent out to you on Monday. Basically, all this is a breakdown of the population among unincorporated areas and the 4 municipalities, which of course the lion's share of Putnam County is the big blue pie piece, Pac-Man there. Second largest, of course, is the orange, which is Palatka. And then we move down Crescent City, Pomona Park, and Willaca. Just so we know, all that we're doing is unincorporated Putnam County. We can put in the intergovernmental relation element language that would continue interlocal cooperations and interlocal agreements. But just wanted to give you the breakdown. We're dealing with 58,000 population in the unincorporated areas as of April 1st, 2019. That's the most recent population data that Beaver has posted. Do you have anything more recent, Brian?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So I wanted to give you that. Moving on to the next page in that is looking at population changes, and it's this one. What I did for these is, instead of just looking at Putnam County all by itself, went ahead and pulled the data for all 6 counties in the Northeast Florida Regional Council area: Baker, Clay, Duval, Flagler, Putnam, and St. John's. Those are who we're grouped with in the Northeast Regional Planning Commission. So just to give you an idea, of course, we've got Clay and Duval counties, which are population dense. And then we come down, Baker and Putnam are the most population sparse. But the one thing that struck me when I charted this out, rather than just looking at numbers, I've got to have a picture. To me, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Is the fact that Clay, Duval, Flagler, Nassau's also in there, and St. John's all saw appreciable, steady, trending increases in population. Baker County and Putnam County while we did have some increase in the overall picture of things, is remaining fairly constant. Chime in when you want to.
Susan, did you do these graphs?
Yes, I did.
Did these?
Yes, I did.
Well, it's impressive. I thank you for that.
Well, I was a data analyst for several years, so I know Microsoft Excel. And I can send them to you in native format if anybody wants the Excel copies. The next one is just Putnam County, and it's the births and the deaths. Well, no, actually, I've got I've got 6 of the counties. I don't have Nassau in there. This shows your net gain in population through birth and death. We see that Duval had more births than deaths. We also have migration that hits this. But when you look at Putnam County, we had over 1,000 more people die than we had people born in Putnam County in this time period, which I believe was 2010 to 2019. So that gives us a picture of our population. If you go to the next sheet in this group, which shows I lost my earpiece, which shows the changes, natural changes, which is your births and deaths, and your net migration, which is people moving into or out of your counties. This one. We barely can see Putnam County. Both our total change and our natural change through migration in or migration out, in this case, migration out, gave us only a net gain of 127 people over a 9-year period. This is just stuff I want you to have to think about when we're going through all of this. Again, the next one is age distribution. Looks like this. If you look at where the young people are and where the old people are, this is Putnam County over a 29-year period, a 39-year period, excuse me. We started off with a high, 1990, we had a higher population in some of the categories. Looked like in, the 18 to 24 age group, we had a majority. And then we began to slide down. But it's the last 2 columns where you really see, the first 2 columns were sliding downward as time progresses. The last 2 columns were moving upward. We're losing our young people. We're gaining those 45 and older. And if you look at the jump between 2010 and 2018, we really are gaining people over age 65. That may give us a clue as some of the direction we want to look at in the comp plan. Then looking at our age distribution rankings in the county, a breakdown of those under 17 and those over 65. Baker County has a high population of those over 65, as do Clay and Duval. Now they have, the higher numbers denote a lower percentage. They rank higher. Baker, Clay, Duval really rank high in people over 65. They have a real difference where they rank in, for example, Baker County is 5th in the total number of people under 17, but they're ranked number 62 out of 67 and over 65. Putnam County has a more balance. We have 16 under the 8, we rank number 16, and over 65, we rank number 24. So there's a balance there. What we don't have is that age group of 18 to 65. your working age group, because the next two are, the next one is just racial rankings in the state, and they pulled out African American and they pulled out Hispanic. And I'll just let you look at that. But Putnam County does have a higher than, you know, higher than Black. We have a larger portion of Hispanic population in Putnam County than we do African American, which is the same thing in Baker County.
Susan, when you first started this, you talked about that we were only in the unincorporated area. Is your graphs all with just the unincorporated
No.
area? Is it include
Graphs are all the total population.
total population?
Yeah, thank you, Joel. Great question. By the way, I don't know whether anybody caught this yesterday, but there for about 5 minutes, there was talk about Mr. Danzler being moved to another board. And I was sitting there about to have a fit when I watched that last night. I was like, no. And luckily, Mr. Rawls made the decision for him about which board he would go to. And the Fair Board is the losing end on that one. So I'm very happy to know that. Population density, again, just a bar chart showing the 6 counties. I didn't go back and add Nassau to everything. But population density, you've got Duval County that is very dense, 1,200 people per square mile average. And then you've got Putnam County that's 101 people per square mile. But that's indicative of our farmland, of our agriculture, and our high concentration of conservation area. Baker County only has 48 people per square mile. So they have some swamp up there, I believe. That little swamp from South Georgia kind of breaches into Baker County. The next one I put together was just the total number of households. It's this one. And showing the changes in the total number of households in these counties between 2000 and 2019, done at the census years. Baker, no change. Clay, a slight increase. Duval, a little bit steeper increase. Flagler, kind of like Clay. Putnam, flat line. St. John's, a good increase. So this is something that we've got to take into consideration that's driving where we are today. And we've got to figure out a way, what we can do to recommend ways that it could possibly help. Now the comp plan, let me ask the question, can the comp plan reverse this trend? Anybody? Or can the comp plan provide a foundation on which the commission and the county can work toward a reversal of these trends and turning Putnam County into one of those increasing counties? Or do we accept where we are? Is the status quo what we want? So those are some things to look at. All right, population, you've got this. It's information that I thought everybody needed to have. It's information that is all pulled from Bieber, and Brian, you can tell them what that means. It's Bureau of Economic something.
Great information, Susan. Thank you for putting it together.
Well, you're welcome. And I don't mind doing this with anything we get. Like I say, I've done this kind of stuff for a living, and I kind of felt like I was back in the saddle last night. Not that I want to be, but it brought back memories of the midnight rides when I was sitting on a laptop in a motel room somewhere. The next to the last one in the first grouping is just a showing of where our land is. It's this pie graph. Currently, this is the land use designations for Putnam County. And not quite a majority of our land, but when you add the two together, Ag 1 and Ag 2, there you see we have nearly 75%. Well, basically, right at 75% of our land is designated in one of the agricultural designators. We have 11% of our land in Ag 1, 48% in Ag 2. That's 70% roughly.
60.
Yeah, 60. Thank you. Then you add in your conservation. And you've got 28% of our land is in conservation. So Mike had put together a wonderful spreadsheet several months ago and given to us. It was on a piece of 11 by 18 paper that I'm sure everybody has seen. It looks like this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where that last page that was sent out yesterday comes from. It's the one that's got the candy striping on it. This shows the changes between 2000 and 2018 or 19, Mike.
That was through 19.
So
The
this
changes, yeah.
And this shows where we've gained, how we've moved our land designators around. How property has gone from one category to another. And you can see that we increased the acreage in conservation by nearly 3,000 acres. And we increased the acreage in public facilities by almost 2,800.
Just a note that public facilities has been pointed out before by Brian. That was primarily the switch of the Seminole Electric plant, the land use, the property from that was in a different land use, the industrial land use category, more appropriate to be in the public facilities. So.
Right. So that
Do we
one's
have
not.
any idea of the surrounding counties when it comes to our conservation lands? How are surrounding counties compared to that? Any idea?
Brian?
You're kind of in the middle of the pack. You'll take a look at Baker County. Of course, you've got the National Forest, you've got Pinhook Swamp, you've got the National Wildlife Refuge. That's going to be your higher one. You know, so they're running at almost 60%, 40, 50, 60%.
Right.
You guys are at 24. I'm trying to think down through some of the rest of the communities. You're on the lower end, but there are ones I think that are lower than you. It's not an extraordinary number.
Okay.
Okay. I was wondering about that too, because it seemed high to me.
Yeah, I thought it was high too. That's why I asked.
I'll see if I can find that data and shoot it out to you if I can. Don't mind doing that. But that's where our land use has changed. And you can see everything below the median line is things that we've moved from, and above the line, things we've moved to. So those are some data that I felt like we needed to have in our midst.
Mike, just question real quick. So you said that the Seminole Electric work, obviously that's switching Seminole Electric from coal to gas. All that land has been placed in the public facility as opposed to commercial.
Yeah, it went from industrial to public facilities. Yeah, to public.
I'm in industrial.
Yeah, that was the land use change that went through. Was it a couple years ago, 3 years ago, changing their land use from industrial to public facilities.
Why is that listed as public facilities? Just curious.
It meets the definition as set forth in the comp plan better than industrial did. Than it fit in industrial.
Okay.
I mean, that's the bottom line. They made the request. It wasn't something that the county initiated, but we agreed with it because it was clearly met the public facilities definition as defined in the comp plan better than the industrial.
I got you.
Other thoughts, questions? Okay, what I would like to do, in the packet that Mike sent out originally, the big one, the 158 pages, bless you, Nancy, for putting all of that together. You will find Mike pulled out discussion of future land use categories. It begins with this page, which I don't have a number on. I apologize. Anyhow, it goes through and talks about the description of what each individual land use element includes and how it is in the Putnam County Plan. Now, this is not everything that's in the Putnam County Plan about these categories, but this is a kind of an encapsulated area. That's what I'd like for us to go through right now and get your input, your thoughts, your gotchas, whatever you feel about this. We'll kind of go through it element by element, if you don't mind. Has everybody found it?
I have not found it.
Okay, it was in the original packet of 158 pages. It's right before the minutes.
Yeah.
It starts out looking like this.
That same chart Susan had on. Yeah.
Right, it's the same chart I had.
Yeah.
Is it the one dated 2/11/2020?
It doesn't have a date on it.
Well, that's the front page.
The
That's what it
2/11/2020 is actually the comp plan itself in the notebook. This was sent out in the packet that went out last week.
With our agenda for today's meeting.
Right, with the agenda.
Yeah.
It was sent out last week. Yeah. Let me see.
I think it came out Monday. I'm just so impressed they were able to get that 158 page packet out. That's a monster. It's right before the minutes. It's about, let's see how many pages it is.
Did she mail it or just through the
She
computer?
sent it through computer, and some of you may have gotten it mailed.
I couldn't print it, and I didn't get one in the mail.
What day did it go out? What day was the email sent out?
Monday, I believe. Nancy, is that correct?
No, it's not Monday. It
Last
was
Monday.
Wednesday.
When did you send the packet out? Email?
I think it was on the 3rd.
A week ago.
It was
The 3rd?
3rd, yeah.
Okay, that's Wednesday.
Wednesday, yeah.
Okay. So it's 6 pages that start right before the minutes. There are a few charts that were before it, and then you've got the discussion. It's got the same data on it without the graph. We'll talk about this more, but there's currently 12 land use categories that we have in the comp plan. One is not used, and the one that's not used is low density residential or residential low density. And of course, if we have to add well, that doesn't have anything to do with it. That's an element, property rights. We need to look at these categories. Are these the categories we want to keep? Do these categories represent where we can best undergird growth? Are these categories, and as they're defined and as they're described, are they ones that we want to see? The first one in this list is urban service. And if I recall correctly, this was new a couple of revisions ago.
No, this has been, urban service has been.
It's always been there. Okay.
Yeah. It's our most intense and dense land use category. Allows for a mix of uses. From a staff standpoint, the limiting issue, one of the biggest limiting issues is it is our highest intent in allowable densities, but at 12 units per acre. That's the maximum you can get in this county today, based on the comp plan, is 12 units per acre. One of the feedback and issues that staff has heard for a number of years is that density is not enough to allow some of, especially addressing some of the lack of multifamily housing and other development that development interests have come to the county looking to do.
And this is land that is close to an urban area, correct?
Yes, yes, and to get anything over an acre, you have to have either central water or sewer. To get both, to get up above 2 units per acre, you have to have both central water and sewer. So that's a requirement in the plan under that land use category. And in the past, it hasn't been the density. I don't think it's been a real issue because the county hasn't had central water and sewer. Right. Now it does. To maximize use of that, you want to have density.
What would you be looking for ideally, like 16 or 20?
I'll tell you, my initial thought was somewhere either 20 to 25 units per acre. That's just that's staff, some discussion with some development interests that have been here in the past. But
I've heard some of those comments, yeah. Let me ask you this, because this land use designation is usually used close to an urban area, which in our case is Palatka.
Yeah.
What if we had someone wishing to do a high density development, Interlochen, Crescent City, Willaca?
If the land use would probably, they would require come in for a land use amendment. That's because none of the other, anything up to 12, you couldn't get there without this land use.
Right. Would it be viable to add an element for high density residential?
Many governments do that.
So that we could accommodate things like a tiny house village, senior citizen apartments, anything that would be higher density than the 12 units per acre, regardless of where it's located.
Let me ask you, what is like St. Johns County's, what is theirs?
I don't know what their, recognize one thing up front. All local governments have different land use categories and different densities. So it's not a universal, but I don't know what their highest is, but I am pretty sure it's significantly higher than 12 units per acre.
Especially with the beach.
Clay has one category that I think will go up to 30 or 40 units per acre.
Because like the new developments that they're building right now, like just off of 207, like those big apartment complexes,
Yeah,
like
way more.
Yeah,
they have a lot higher.
And that would allow a big development company to come and develop or have the ability to develop something like that and then grow our county, right? That's what we want.
Yep.
And right now they don't have the ability to do something like that.
Right, because you're maxed at 12 units per acre is as high as you can go in this county.
Like, what is what is like the apartment complex in Putnam? I forgot the name of the place. Their office.
Is it in the city?
No, the one.
Hiawatha or whatever it is.
Hiawatha.
Yeah. What, this will probably max.
I am not sure that I have looked at that PUD, but I can't recall. But it shouldn't be over 12 units per acre.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, that's got to be, that Hiawatha's got to be more than 12 acres. Same way with the those condos down at Willaca.
What about like
now, if they're in the city of Willaca, that's Willaca's land use.
Like, what about like Barrington Apartments?
City of Palatka.
They're in Palatka. If they're in Palatka, Palatka has a higher density. They'll allow, I think, 20, 25 units per acre.
Okay.
in some of their land use categories.
Okay.
We
You know,
definitely need to add a higher use in the county for sure.
There's no question. No question.
Okay.
Now, from a staff standpoint, one of the things I like about the urban service is that it allows a mix of uses, because you can get commercial uses as well as light industrial uses with that. So you could get a mixed use project rather than some of our other categories, which are strictly residential or primarily.
That would be closer to Palatka again.
Yeah.
We
Brian,
also have to, go ahead, Joel.
I had a question for Brian. If, like the villages, for instance, the villages came in, and do you have are you familiar with how they're zoned and all? Because in my opinion, I kind of feel like the Putnam County is heading toward the more of the retirement community type thing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I completely agree.
We need to do something to foster that and make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things with the villages, of course, is that it's was accumulated and put under single ownership. And when that happens, they went to, the county and then ultimately into Wildwood, and simply asked for changes to comprehensive. For example, Wildwood had to radically change their comprehensive plan when the villages started to move into incorporated Wildwood. Wildwood is a very skinny and long city and kind of was in the path of the village's development. So they had to wildly transform their comprehensive plan and zoning to accommodate the kinds of things that the villages did. Villages is a mixed use, as you mentioned. It's also a mixed density. So you've got single family residential, relatively large lot, not so huge lots, but you've got a lot of multifamily, you've got assisted living, you've got everything from soup to nuts within the villages. Not my favorite development, but that's neither here nor there.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
So if somebody came in, let's say a big developer came in and bought, 80,000 acres, or let's pick a number, and they can come back in and rezone the 80,000 to mix it however they choose to do. And that's a possibility with the comp plan.
Remember, the zoning is separate from land use.
Yeah.
Comp plan is land use.
Yeah, the first thing is that you'd have to have a land use category that could accommodate that. And Mike is right, your urban service area is it with higher densities because it allows for mix of use. But here is the other problem. And the other problem, for example, your USA urban service area, which is just south and contiguous to Palatka, does not have water and sewer. The county has chosen to run its water and sewer down 17, up north out of East Palatka, and that is your realistic short-term area for that kind of activity, unless a developer were to come in. And I see this happening right now, for example, in Baker County, where ICI Homes is coming into a portion of Baker County without water and sewer, which is the entirety of the county except for the city of McClenny. And they've already petitioned the Public Service Commission for a water sewer franchise. They're doing their rate studies. They're going to build their own utilities. Yeah, of course.
Well, the case that we were going to look,
that would happen with a large developer that would come in anyway, especially in the rural areas. They're not going to, water and sewer is going to be, that's a given. They're going to make it happen.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that is part of that case that we didn't hear today, because the Bayou Club has its own water sewer system. So that's an example of where that's going on right now. There are a lot of the municipalities and small community groups that have water systems, don't have sewer system. Lake Como has a water system, but we don't have a sewer system.
But you also have to have, and I think Mr. Danzer was going there, you have to have the density to support the investment in the water and sewer. And from what I've heard, 12 units per acre doesn't cut it.
No. You lose your economy of scale there.
Yeah.
And
And one of the other things to think about is if you're waiting for this large developer to come, you know, they're going to make a capital investment in water and sewer, and they're going to need a return on that investment through absorption of sales.
Yes.
When I mentioned Baker County, for example, you think Baker, and Madam Chair, you've been through the numbers, kind of a rural community, 25,000 people. The location of this is on the Duval County line and 35 minutes from downtown. So here's a place that it's the right place at the right time, and that will sell and will absorb because of its proximity to a major employment center, which is why you find them willing to fork out the cash up front. Now they'll probably do a community development district, and depends on what the market is, of course. But you know, they're looking for, you know, quick absorption, or at least quick sales to vertical developers.
I know one of the things that was talked about years ago on this commission was the proximity to Clay County and the Clay County, Putnam County line as being a place where development or industrial development or any kind of development would be attractive because of the proximity, especially when the new bypass gets completed. So there are all sorts of things out there. Is there general consensus among the members of the board that we want to move towards something like a high density residential area?
Oh, yeah.
There's no question.
I'm just thinking it's better to leave it in urban service and increase the density so that you could have a multitude of uses and not just residential.
Could you increase the density in urban service for the urban area and then do a separate high density residential for the more rural areas?
I mean, we could do that, you know, adding a new land use category for that. Yeah, I mean, that's doable.
Brian.
Ma'am.
Can you get your pen and pencil out and draft that for us? And get it back to us when we meet on May 24th.
Certainly, ma'am.
That would be great. So that's one of the areas to look at. Where would you go with the higher density in urban services? What's the consensus of the board? It's getting dark in here. Somebody wave their hands.
I would like to know what I would like to know what other counties are doing that, like Duval and St. John's. I mean, is there like I want to replicate these counties that are growing. So
Brian?
We could certainly do a comparison and bring those to you on the 24th. But as an ancillary, I just want the Planning Commission to think about this, and Michael and I have had this discussion, is to take a look at how you get to those higher densities within the USA or even in some of the other districts is through your point system.
Would you explain the point system to the board?
I'll turn to Mike.
We deferring this until May 24 or June 24th?
There is the ability to increase density based on, I don't remember the exact number of criteria in the policy.
Almost a dozen.
Yeah. You get different points for being on a paved road, being within a certain distance of a school, distance to work, the set aside of units for affordable housing, set aside of land for recreation. You get a certain number of points, and based on those points, you can increase the density. For instance, just experience, the density point system doesn't work real well for the ag future land use districts because they're out away from development. And you know, I'm not saying that's bad or good. That's just the reality. But for an instance, for the only way you can get to 12 if you got 100 points in the urban service land use, you'd have to still get 100 points before you could get to the 12 units per acre. So even with the urban service land use, you're not guaranteed 12 units.
Wouldn't it be more attractive to a developer who was looking at the comp plan to see a fixed number than be referenced back to a formula that's somewhere
agree.
else?
You know, that,
Is the point system, is that something that the state says that we have to operate under? Okay.
that was the county's decision to go in that direction.
Yeah.
So the county can get rid of it.
I just think, in my opinion, we need to figure out what makes it easier for, we want to be as attractive as possible to bring some people. I mean, you know, our county, we've got a great county, and I know there's a lot of people that don't want it to grow in some areas, and I understand that. We have to be protective of that, but still, we need to, in this comp plan, we need to make it where that's not a reason they don't come.
We need to make it realistic, but we need to make it positive and attractive. So the KISS method usually works best. You know, keep it simple, stupid. So as we go through and revise this, Brian, we're going to be dumping a lot back on you as the consultant, but
That's great. That's what I
make
hear.
it simple.
Yeah.
You know, give us recommendations that make it simple. Looking at other areas, the urban reserve area, Mike, you want to explain that one a little bit?
That's another, our next step down. The urban service was the highest. Urban reserve is where, as defined, it's where those areas where the county believes that central services will be in sometime in the future. It allows a maximum of 4 dwelling units per acre, but again, with central water and sewer. And this is, Brian referenced it earlier, there is a big chunk of, that's a planning term, of urban reserve land use south of the city of Palatka. Utilities, the county's not going to be providing utilities there in the time frame of this comp plan out to 2035. The city of Palatka may or may not provide some utilities to some of the adjacent areas in that area. This is an area that, from a staff standpoint, and I mentioned this to Brian early on, I want to take a real close look at, because I don't think most of it's appropriate for urban reserve, just because it's never going to have utilities in my lifetime.
And I also think City of Palatka's extension of water and sewer policies drive people's annexation.
Yeah, they're fimbriated land lines.
Well, most of their policy has been, if you're outside the city, you want water and sewer, we'll sign an annexation agreement, we'll send it to you, and then when we get out to your property, you annex in.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you and Brian work on a revision to that element? Now realize these descriptions that we have right here are not the full descriptions of these elements. Go back and look at your comp plan and see the full descriptions. The next one is rural center. And this is an area we only have 1,000 acres designated in rural center. It's something we tried, I think it was 2015, 2010.
Well, what happened, just a brief history on the rural center. They were from back in '92, I think, I believe the rural centers were a land use category. There were, like, I want to say over 20 of them throughout the county. Over the years, very few of them developed. nothing happened in them. In 2010, the county looked at and removed a number of the rural centers.
Yes.
And, again, one of the limits was the density issue in rural center and having available water and sewer utilities. To be honest, when I first started, that was one of my charges when we updated to 22 was to look at those centers, and they didn't seem to be working real well because there wasn't development going to them. I think the tide is starting to change, and I think there may be some use to relooking at some areas for maybe reinstituting the rural center land use in, or expanding some of the ones. And I'll tell you, one of the ones in my mind is the one down south at 17 and
Clifton Road.
Clifton Road. I think there's the potential that there could be some support for some of the mix of uses and the densities allowed in the rural center, especially with the widening of 17 that will eventually go all the way to Volusia County.
Mike, how many rural centers are left? Is Orange Mills out here on 207 a rural center?
That one was removed. That one is not a rural center anymore.
And it seems like it should be, but
yeah, we have and maybe we need, we can go back and part of this effort, and looking at the future land use map where all these fall on the map, is to look at that. I mean, it may be Orange Mills, maybe we want to look at either urban reserve or urban service, expanding up 207 because water and sewer is going up there. So those are the types of things, rather than rural center. Rural center may be
right.
But
and we'll get our crayons out, or we get to use our crayons at the very end, because we want to go through everything in the comp plan before we look at the map and then say, okay, this is what we want to do. So that'll be something we'll recommend toward the end. Erin.
Hey, Madam Chair, I just have a general question. I know we talked about Brian working with the member from the Northeast Florida Regional Council. And I was just checking, have we had much input from them or from the chamber business leaders? I mean,
that would be part of our
what are they?
Brian?
You're
muted. You're muted. Where's my mouse? Okay. Unmute you, Brian.
There we go.
Okay.
There you are.
Let me take those in reverse order. I have been working with Brian Bergen at the Chamber as we're looking at your economic development element to cross off what is in the existing element that has been accomplished and add in new things. So we're working towards that. Back to the Regional Council, they have, just like so many other people, they have actually shut down their offices totally. They're still sort of working from home. But we haven't had any input. Sean LaHave has been with us to talk about issues of repetitive flooding, resiliency, sea level rise, and those sorts of things. And I think when we get to there, I think their activity will ramp up a bit. And we welcome them, invited them. I asked them into this party with Mike's agreement early on because I thought they could bring things to the table. And you've been a member of them for many, many years.
Who is our commissioner rep?
I was there for 33 years. I've been away from them for a year, but last time it was Commissioner Harvey and Commissioner Goddard, and that still may be correct.
I believe it's Commissioner Goddard and Commissioner Rawls now.
Okay.
Oh, that's correct. I'm sorry. Yes, but that happened after I left, but
That's right.
yeah, I heard
Yeah.
about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they would be also good resources to have because they sit on those councils, that council. We are approaching the 6 o'clock hour. We've got another 11 minutes, so I'm not gonna panic right now, but I'll get you out of here at 6 o'clock. Talk about rural centers and rural residential and how the rural center allows for multi-use.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it allows for commercial and it allows for things that support a community.
Right.
Or be it a small community.
Yeah, I mean, that was primarily the idea behind the rural center was to provide an area where the surrounding ag or rural areas could come in, you know, do some local shopping, maybe a higher density, those types of uses that would support the surrounding rural areas. That was the idea behind the rural center.
And I think the one you mentioned, US 17 and Clifton Road, is beginning to do that with the Dollar General down there.
Yeah.
Locals call that the Clifton Mall. So it works. It's nice to go down there. We do it frequently. But so that's something we need to look at probably and look at where they should be and where we would like to put them and project them to be. Now, any changes we make to the future land use map, Mike, those have to be advertised and posted.
Oh yeah, well this whole thing will be advertised and posted when it gets adopted and transmitted both.
Right, but changes to the map specifically.
That'll be part of the deal, yeah.
Yep.
And that's where you'll recognize it. That's where the real fights are.
That's where you get a lot of community angst because they don't understand what you're doing. They think you're going to bring Walmart in, especially in South Putnam. You know that, Joey.
Yes.
Been there, lived it. Rural residential.
Yeah. That's primarily a residential category, as you would expect. 1 dwelling unit to 5 acres. With the point system, you can get up to 1 unit per acre. One of the limiting factors that staff has experienced with that is that you can only do commercial through a PUD in that land use category. You know, and no industrial is allowed. That has been one of the issues with people in that land use category. When you've got residential, having the ability to do some commercial makes it a lot more convenient. You know, the people don't have to drive as far. So that's one of the issues that staff has recognized is out there with that.
But your rural center
could fill
that gap.
Yeah.
But you have to go through the change to get that too. So
yeah, I mean, we're going to change all of them.
So are we locked into this point system, or is that something we can make a recommendation of changing?
No, you can get rid of that. I mean, from a staff perspective, one of the things I heard earlier and made a note is maybe we want to scratch that and take a close look at the point system, either scratch it or revamp it heavily. That's already on something I made notes of from the earlier comments. So staff will bring forward something to address, and I don't know what it is now, but we'll work with Brian and we'll come forward with you on something related to all of these land use categories and including the point score system.
Where you have a number, if you want to just put a blank line in there and we'll address that June 24th. Something we can do. Commercial, go ahead. I'm sorry, who was speaking?
I was going to ask what the land use categories, what categories are PUDs allowed in?
All of them.
Okay, that's what I thought. So really it kind of opens up a lot of opportunity, I think, when you get
Well,
into a PUD, does it not?
But a PUD has to be consistent with the underlying or overlying land use.
Okay,
So if the land use says you can't have industrial, you can't do a PUD to allow industrial.
right, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So
So as long as you're in compliance with
with
those
the land use,
categories.
yeah.
Commercial land use category undergirds C1, 2, and 3, or do we don't have 4 anymore, do we?
Yeah, we do. We have a
We do?
C4.
We have C4?
Yeah.
Sounds like an explosive thing to me. Sorry, I couldn't resist. So those are the zoning
Yeah, the C1,
overlays.
yeah. You know, the commercial and industrial land use categories are really straightforward. I mean, the mining too.
Mhm.
I think the one thing from a staff standpoint I would like to look at and bring forward is looking at the you know, the intensity issue, which is tied to the floor area ratios, which are in those categories. Limit that and the impervious surface. I mean, that also has, you know, that coordinates with some of the water quality issues. But those are really what you know, where I think an effort needs to be looked at to see if they're adequate. Maybe we need to massage the floor area ratios to allow some larger, you know, a little more intense development.
Give us a blank line. Put in parentheses what was there and let us play with it.
Okay. The mining is straightforward. Public facilities, I think, is straightforward.
I guess the thing that with public facilities, I'm like Joe was, public facilities, I don't think of a privately owned corporation as a public facility. But that's what Seminole is.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you what they met the definition of public facilities a lot better based on how it was drafted in the or adopted in the comp plan than the industrial. I mean, we can change. I mean, that could be a change if you want to propose something like that. That could be a change in the definition of that land use category.
It was mentioned earlier by Joe about the comparisons of the surrounding counties. Do they have the same categories that we have in developing, or is it just is it hard to make that comparison because their categories don't coincide with ours?
Yeah, there's very unlikely that any categories will correspond, but we can give a general idea of looking at their high density and high intensity development, what that would allow, and compare that to ours. That's the way I'd approach it.
I'll make an offer to keep this from having to go back to Brian, which would be labor intensive. I'll be glad to research that and get us some comparative information.
That's okay. That's not that difficult.
It would just seems like to me is if we're that much difference in our categories, and I'm assuming that we are, does it make sense that we keep our categories, or does it make sense that we change something that's more universal with surrounding counties as far as categories?
It really doesn't matter. I mean, it's just what your preference. Now, you won't find, I would be surprised if you find anything that's real universal. I mean, you know, you'll find the industrial and commercial. They'll have industrial land use and commercial land use. But when you get into the urban service, they'll have something that's a different name. I mean,
then moving into agriculture, we have Ag 1 and Ag 2. Ag 1 is cropland and pasture. Ag 2 is mainly silviculture and rangeland.
Yeah.
Now, what's the difference between rangeland and pasture?
Not a whole lot. The big difference is the density of development that's allowed.
Right.
1 to 10 in Ag 1, 1 to 20 in Ag 2. From a staff standpoint, I question whether we need 2 agricultural
That was my.
land use categories.
Right, why two?
You know, and then, you know, what densities are appropriate?
Just a thought. I mean, and this, I'm just saying this in general. If some big developer comes in and wants to develop, I mean, they're gonna pull it from the agricultural, land use. And so just me thinking out loud, I mean, you're gonna want to make sure that your ag land use it'd be easy for a developer to be able to develop in agriculture. You see what I'm saying? So I mean,
Put a PUD in there, yeah.
Or,
I'm
well,
just
a
saying.
land use change, it just depends on, it would probably require, it's going to require a land use change.
Right.
Reality. But, let me remind you, because in the back of my mind, the county went through the strategic planning effort and did a number of community workshops. This was administration. And one of the things that came out of that, and we've heard it at some of the workshops we've done and some of the comments that have come into staff, is one thing that's valuable to this county, to the citizens of the county. They want to maintain that rural feel of Putnam County. And so there's,
So that's an overarching.
I don't know how, right now, how we do that, but it's, if we start doing a lot of intense or higher density development throughout anywhere in the county, allowing it, you have a tendency, I believe, to start losing some of that rural feel.
Yeah, and just that thought process there is why Putnam County will stay stagnant. If just
we've got to be able to, we can work with this and massage it with buffers and setbacks and things like that. If somebody wants to come in and put a development in an ag area, require them to make sure that what it looks like from the average passerby is ag, is rural. So that's another piece. We've talked a little bit about conservation.
The only thing in 207, I believe, in that about that time frame, the county decided that, and I don't know, as far as I can tell, they've held by it. They removed any privately held lands that were designated conservation to agriculture. They only, at that point, decided that conservation will only be in public ownership.
Don't we have privately owned conservation land up around Barton or up
I don't believe we do. It's now we may have some with conservation easements on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
But they're ag land use, ag future land use, but they have conservation easements. Those properties that are on the map colored for conservation, I believe, are all publicly held.
No. Bear Island, we just did within the past year.
But that's not on the map designated conservation. That is designated. It is conservation in the PUD. The PUD designates as conservation, but not the future land use designation.
Okay, I remember we did that one.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about the residential low density. Maybe we didn't. We talked about high density. Low density.
It doesn't exist on the map.
Right.
It was added at a later date after the original comp plan amendment. I will tell you the story I was told that there was a push by the county commission at the time. This was before I was here, for this additional land use with a higher density. The staff at that time did not see eye to eye with the desires of the board. So they made this, they adopted it and brought forward a land use category. But if you read it, the restrictions are so heavy, it doesn't, nobody will use it. It needs to be either scratched or redrafted to be useful. I think that there's some potential for it. The density is sort of an intermediate one that I think could be useful, but the restrictions that are placed on it make it nearly impossible to be able to use.
Right. All right. It's 6:04. We did pretty well with this. Is this the kind of thing that would be helpful if we actually go through the actual comp plan language? Just to sit down and look at category by category?
For the land use, or are you talking goals, objectives, and policies?
Well, we get into the goals, objectives, and policies in the individual elements.
Yeah.
Because we've still got to go through the land use element as such.
Right.
But is
my suggestion, for what it's worth, as your staff, would be to allow staff and the consultant to give you like after this discussion, to give you a markup and give you, there are some things that we know need to be changed.
Mike, I completely agree with you. I mean, y'all see it all the time. I mean, you see the complaints. I want to know what the complaints are that y'all hear on a daily basis.
Right.
And give you a markup that you can, at least as a starting point. I believe that would probably be the most efficient way to move forward.
Okay. My one overarching principle that I want to ask that's done, I guess there are two. Number one, that it's all couched in positive language. No use of the word prohibited, no use of the word limited, no negative, you can't do this, you can't do that. Make it permissive language. That's much more attractive to a developer. They're going to be turned off when they say you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that.
Exactly.
The other thing is we've got to be consistent. I read through the land use element yesterday with word by word. And it's obvious that parts of it were added in different administrations and different staffing because it's not consistent. You've got abbreviations and acronyms used one place. You've got in the same sentence, abbreviations and written out. Things like that need to be consistent. But my biggest concern is positive language. So yes, go forth, bring to us June 24th. I'm still in May. Bring to us June 24th a markup of the comp plan. All the elements.
No.
Okay. I don't know. We can do all of them.
No.
They're not that, once you get out of land use, you're not looking at a whole lot.
I mean,
all right. Bring us, all right. Here.
I don't
Jerry, stop laughing.
No, I love it.
You know I'm a taskmaster. Okay, here we go. Bring us land use, housing, bring us the first four marked up. Land use, traffic, housing, and infrastructure.
I recognize it will be, we can give you a markup. It's not going to be, it's going to be a rough markup. I mean, the reality is,
this will be our first chance.
A real rough markup.
This will be our first chance to go through for refinement, okay?
Just give us some direction on, I'm sorry for interrupting, on you know, where you guys are, what you're thinking.
Give us the basic. Now, if you would, double space it and make it 12-point type. I know we're going to kill trees if we print it out, but it's a lot easier to proofread. It's a lot easier to make notes in a double-spaced document. So double space it, 12-point type. Bring us the first 4 on June 24th. Bring us the next 5, which are not that big, at our July meeting. Okay? That'll keep us on schedule.
I don't mean to be negative, but we have had a COVID virus here, and even a meeting like this is very difficult to for me to track, even in a lot of cases. I'd like to see it on that board, you know, like we normally have, and it's a little bit to understand. But is October realistic to get everything done with? Because I mean, like in Bostwick, we would have already had our meeting that we wanted to have, our workshop for the Bostwick area, and we don't even have a building that they'll let us meet at.
Right.
We don't know when that's going to come available, so I'm just throwing it out there. It seems like to me it's going to be tough, and
let's keep it as a goal, but know that we can move it. You know that if things don't fall in place and we can't get those meetings, but we got to get those meetings, guys. So there's a lot coming up. Hopefully we don't have any cases that we have to hear in July. Can we defer cases from July to August?
But take in consideration that Brian, if we're having to do these other workshop meetings, and Brian, I'm assuming Brian is at those workshop meetings, not correct?
Yes.
So,
Right.
I mean, that's going to take time and his schedule and input and everything else. I guess I'm bleeding for Brian.
Well, I mean, and my other concern is that this schedule that you're proposing is not consistent with the schedule you talked about at the beginning with, which is fine. But here's the other problem. We get too far out in front of this, and if we really want all of these workshops, which I agree with, if I'm the regulated public or the people who want to talk, says, well, you've already made your decisions on these. You got red lines out there. And, you know, even though you haven't, I'm not saying you have, but we'll hear it, that you've already made decisions on these things. And why are we meeting here today?
We're not going to make a final decision on anything until September.
Ma'am, I understand that.
So, you know, everything is fluid until September, but we've got to jump on that merry-go-round and get started. And this is a mandate from the commission. And we got to go back and look at what the original schedule was in that RFP. And I'm not going to point that out right now, but that original schedule, nothing was met by the consultant. And we have got to get on track, and we have got to get busy. Yes, we had a 2-month time of hell. And I know a lot of people just absolutely didn't want to leave their homes. And it was tough, and it still is tough. And we don't know whether come September, this thing's going to flare back up and we're going to go back in shutdown. You know, Joel, you're muted.
I said, it's not going to. I'm so sick of this thing. It ain't going to.
I hope not. Your lips to God's ears there, my friend. I hope not. But, you know, all the experts and the scientists are saying it could. So we've got to be ready.
They have been so wrong on so many things on this thing until I don't.
Amen.
I'm sorry to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have. But they've been right on a few. So, you know, and we've done what they've told us to do. So I hope they don't tell us to do it again, but they could. And we just want to be ready as much as we can.
Well, Susan, I want to tell you that I think our board did a great job in appointing or electing you as our leader. Your leadership, your insight.
I've played with things like this for a long time.
I should say, it was very much appreciated. I can tell you that. The county commission should be proud that you're working for them.
Well, thank you. That's very humbling.
That doesn't give you an increase in salary, though, so don't count on that.
You know, I take the same thing you do. And this is something we all do because we care about our county.
That's true.
And we care about the future. And we want to leave this place better than we found it. And I think that is the driving force for all of us. And I will step in and pick up the slack, Mike and Brian, in any of those areas you need me to. Just give me some basic direction. Give me a phone call, Mike, and say, Susan, I need you to do this. And I will do it. I've got a long history in planning and plan stuff and all this kind of stuff and statistics for sure. So I'm glad to pick up the slack and help you guys.
Joe, you're making me dizzy.
I'm waiting for this to end.
All right, it's 6:15. Is there anything else for the good of the order?
Yes, Susan, is that time for the 24th, 6 to 9? Is that definite or?
How do you all feel about 6 to 9?
It works for me.
Fine for me.
In person?
Yeah.
In person. Is that good for you, Brian?
I'll be there.
All right. And Mike, can we have the room set up so we can kind of be in a square?
Yep.
Okay.
I need to count everything is, I believe it'll be, the boardroom will be available, but I haven't checked. I will do that first thing tomorrow.
Okay.
And I know your schedule and what you gave direction to, but I want to let you know the infrastructure element needs some significant work because now in 2010, the county didn't have any real water and sewer.
That's right.
It does
right.
now. And that, I'm going to be honest with you, I feel uncomfortable, Tony, that from a staff standpoint, we can have something serious with that because there's been a significant change in the last 9-10 years
Okay.
with that.
Give us land use, traffic, housing, and conservation. Put infrastructure back for the later.
Because we're still waiting on data from the county on infrastructure.
Right. And the other piece is the infrastructure will come when we look at the map. A lot of that will look at the map.
But
All right.
also, infrastructure is going to come when the growth happens as well. I mean,
Exactly.
it's going to control it some, but I guess I have high hopes. I'm hoping that somebody comes in and does something huge, put their own water and sewer in and utilities.
I think the public sewer and water will drive commercial development. Residential development could also be, like you say, private. So, but I think things like we've seen in East Palatka, once the water and sewer system went in East Palatka, look at the growth we've had along the US 17 corridor. So, you build a better mousetrap, somebody's going to come.
Water and sewer also drives residential severely.
Yep.
I mean, the developers, the first thing they look for is water and sewer there because that gets their density to where they can make money. They don't have the density, and the only way they're going to get their density is to have water and sewer. So,
and we have to have the capacity to support that.
That's correct.
So we're in a circle, and but we can make this circle happen. And like I said, Mike, just punt to me anything you need me to do. I'll work on the grammar and the consistency stuff and the positive language and send that to you if you want me to. Just tell me.
In touch.
All right. Anything else? Madam Secretary, it is 6:18. We have approved the minutes. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you all very much. And George, I know you were active with us yesterday and the day before. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your spending the time with us this afternoon.
No problem.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.